It is Bell Let's Talk Day, and we are focusing on having open conversations about mental health, and we certainly hope that all of you with us will join this conversation. So let's begin with this one. Smashing Pumpkins frontman Billy Corgan, he recently opened up about how he deliberately discusses his childhood trauma with his children. His kids are aged 8 and 5, and he says it is important not to hide the past and give them what they're capable of understanding. Jen, this is a really big topic. I understand we're starting the show with this because childhood trauma is a big topic, but what do you make that these kids are just 8 and 5? You don't have kids yet, coming, but not yet. I mean, is that fair to share, or is that healthy?
You know what, I think every family's different, and I think it depends on the child and how intelligent they are and what they can comprehend. I think that there is something to be said about sharing and normalizing trauma within the family environment so they don't struggle in silence. But by no means would I ever expect our little daughter, who we're expecting, to emotionally support me. That's what I pay a therapist $200 a week for.
Yeah, I love that.
Good point.
Really
Good point.
Yeah.
Right. That's a really good point.
I think it's interesting. Like, I thought about this in the context of my family, and my paternal grandfather, so my dad's father, passed away before I was born. But as I've gotten older, I've learned more about him. And apparently he was not the nicest man. He did have struggle with addictions and I think was abusive to his kids. And my dad didn't share that information with me growing up. And I wonder, had he shared a little bit more of that when I was younger, if I would have had a better, more compassionate, more empathetic understanding of him and some of his behavioral quirks that used to get on my nerves as a teenager. But having said that, like, I'm glad to know it now. And I think about that as a parent. My son is 10. I've just returned from a leave, as many of you know, for mental health. And during that time off, I struggled. I was like, what do I say? What do I not say? I didn't want to get into the weeds of all of it. So more than saying, I did. So I did say I was taking some time off. It did end up resulting in him being like, I need some mental health days in December. So he was home a lot with me in December, but it actually, I think, was good. And then, so he's seeing me do yoga, do mindfulness, do journaling. And I'm hopeful that by doing actions, that they'll just seep in.
Yeah,
you know?
no, I think it's a smart thing to do because you're building a trust with your child that will help him in every relationship he has going forward. Because in our family, especially culturally as Black people, talking about your mental health is such a taboo thing. We don't do it. We're still struggling with it today. And one of the things that happened in our family that is the saddest thing is I have an aunt who was married to a man who was very physically abusive to her, which resulted in many trips to the hospital, and eventually she ended up in a women's shelter. And while she was going through this, she didn't tell anybody in the family. We're talking about a woman with 5 brothers, and not one of them knew what she was going through. And not only did she keep that secret, she also made her daughter keep that secret. And we know what those secrets do. You cause stress and anxiety. And I remember my cousin telling me, she's like, I'll tell you everything that happened when my mom passes away. And I think she was just trying to honor her mom because her mom, she grew up in a time where women you just didn't talk about that kind of stuff. You kept that kind of stuff to yourself. And I think it's important to break those chains because there are young women in our family who need to know that if they're in that situation, speak up. You have people who want to support you. It's not shame. Because the minute you talk about it, you get rid of that shame and that stigma around this is your problem. So I think it's important to build that trust so that you can have those conversations.
Yeah.
Super important. Super important.
Hey there, what did you think? Drop your comments below and join the conversation. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you can find more on everything from food and fashion to pop culture and current events. See you soon.